Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to talk about this thing we call death on the 33rd episode and special Halloween edition of Antidote. Joining us in the studio today are the curators and owners of the world-famous Museum of Death, J.D. Healy and his beautiful wife, Cathee Shultz. Welcome to Antidote.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
You guys, I was in the museum on Friday.
Great.
I gotta say, the business of death is pretty good right now.
That's been good to us.
Well, okay, so let's explain for the viewers what made you guys go, bing, Death Museum?
Well, it was actually an accident that happened. You know,
Okay.
with all great art, you know, it was something that we never planned on. But back when we had our art galleries, we started doing controversial shows. One of them was artwork by serial killers, and we started amassing a huge collection of death-related items. And then one day, my wife said to me, she goes, "You know, I would sure like to have a museum one day." And so one thing led to another, and we had the gallery. We had a little basement on Fifth Avenue in the Gaslamp Quarter in San Diego, and we weren't using it. And bing, said, we'll open up the Museum of Death, and that's how it worked.
But you guys were doing exhibitions prior to that. I think you mentioned even back as far as '87, you guys were doing unusual exhibitions.
Sex, drugs, rock and roll, anything that push
Religion,
buttons.
Perfect.
money.
Religion.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The building we were in was an old mortuary. And so that was another, that's why death popped up. It was just this subject that kept popping up in our exhibits, and it surrounded us. And I didn't know a lot about it. Most people in their 40s have never seen a dead body. And it's like, wow, what an interesting subject. And nobody wanted to talk about it 20 years ago. So we just started collecting, and it was just the death
20
is our
years
life.
ago, you wouldn't see T-shirts being sold in Nordstrom's with skulls on them.
No.
That's true. Well, let me ask you this. How did San Diego dig on a Museum of Death initially?
Oh, they hated us.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we had death threats, bomb threats. We should burn in hell.
We had the Vice come in and try to shut us down.
Yeah.
We had a lot of problems. The
Not
the ACLU were our lawyers back then, and so they helped us out quite a bit.
Well, okay, so if the Vice Squad comes in, what are they saying that's wrong? What are they saying what kind of laws are you violating?
Well, it was mostly that we would do an annual sex show every year.
Oh, okay.
And so they were tying the two together. So our annual sex shows would have 5 sex acts going on at one time, announced. So like during the opening, all kinds of weird stuff would be happening. So the next day, Vice would come in thinking that we were having these sex shows every second. And when they'd go down in the Museum of Death, all they saw were these car crashes, these fatality photographs, and all this other stuff. And That's why they would come in. They try to shut us down basically for showing, death. But that's not what they really came for. They came for, the sex.
Came for the SEX, ladies and gentlemen.
Who wouldn't cover that?
Yeah. Well,
it was all in the name of art.
Of course it was.
Art will set you free.
How long were you in San Diego before coming to Hollywood?
5 years. Well, the art gallery was 87, 88, and the museum started in 95, and we moved to LA in 2000. So the Museum of Death, 5 years down there.
Okay. But the current museum where it stands now, what year did that one open? Because I know this is the second version
Yes.
of the museum.
The one on Ivar, we opened in 2000.
Okay.
We closed for a few years, trying to find a new location, and we opened the current location at 6031 Hollywood in 2008.
Yep.
So,
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what it looks like. I was there on Friday.
Beautiful.
Had a thoroughly good time. Explain to the people who haven't been there, what's the idea behind the Museum of Death? Tell us what's in it and what you see as the vision that you have for it.
Well, we love life, and we want other people to love life. And I think people go along during every day and forget that it's so precious. You could be hit by a truck at any minute. Plane could fall on your head. It happens all the time.
Even if you live in this body for 100 years, it's nothing in time.
Right.
So you should really take the time out to smell the roses. By having the Museum of Death, hopefully we can kick people in the butt a little bit and get them to realize that, you don't have to be a jerk all the time. Maybe you should be nice to people once in a while and say hello, instead of just going through life, being sullen and down.
And you got to shock people in this world to get their attention. So we do have really shocking images. Nowhere else in the world do you see this stuff in a business setting. And it catches people's attention, and they come in, and then they walk through, they really get a sense of, hey, life is precious, and when they finally walk out, everyone comes out with a big smile on their face, or they pass out.
They're very happy to be alive, yeah.
They're happy to be alive, and so we educate them while they're there, just about life, about what happens to a dead body, how we as a society process dead people. What happens to serial killers? They get executed. What happens to executed people? They get buried. So it's all kind of a linear...
How to create a shrunken head.
Yeah, that too. The number one question. How
Is that
do
right?
you create a shrunken head?
Okay,
Yeah.
hey, spill, I gotta know.
Well, a shrunken head is made by basically making beef jerky. What they do is they remove the skull out of the head, they hold it over a fire for about 18 hours
Just soft
with smoking and hand manipulate it, and it's just a process that it just dries up. It's like meat. It just starts shrinking. And so that's basically it.
The trick is the removal of the skull.
Removal
That's
of the
it.
skull.
Yeah,
Makes
people don't
perfect sense.
What's
think
really
they're
cool,
gonna
though,
crush
is
it.
there was a guy in the early 1900s who came from a tribe in Peru, and he became a doctor. And his grandfather was a tribal guy that used to fight and kill other tribe members and shrink heads. Well, this doctor had this fascination about these shrunken heads, and one day, a couple bodies from Europe had washed up on shore there. And so the doctor had these red-headed bodies, and he thought, wow, I'm going to try to shrink the whole person. And so he actually did a pretty good job, except he couldn't get the bones out of the hands and the feet. So he shrunk these people down, but they have these huge hands and the feet, and they were on display at the Natural American History Museum in New York for a long time until they were taken off because of PC reasons.
Well, the PC thing is something I want to return to because that's another thing I like about your
We're not
museum.
PC.
You're not PC at all.
Not
Which
at all.
brings us to, we got to talk about serial killers for a second because right when you walk in, one of the first rooms is about serial killers, and this is one of the parts of the museum where I think if I could have spent more time, I might have gotten more disturbed. I actually had a really good time at it. But you have artwork by like John Wayne Gacy, and if I understand correctly, you guys used to be his art rep?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were our rep, and one of our hobbies was we used to write to serial killers and visit them on death row. The serial killer exhibit came out of an article I read out of a book a long time ago.
Culture.
A guy named Monty Gazaza wrote a paper called Serial Killer, spelled with a C, The Art of Corporate Lebensraum. And what that was this idea how big corporations manipulate children at an early age through cereal boxes. And that just led to one thing to another, and that's how I started writing to serial killers, and I started researching corporations and cereal boxes, how they're positioned in markets, and the height of a shopping cart with a child in it, and what they put into these these boxes with these toys. All the stuff in the cereal is the same stuff. It's just like marketing cars, basically. They're creating future consumers, and that's the basis of it.
But do
serial
they
killers.
create future serial killers? How does that happen?
Do you think they do?
Well,
I think that serial killers are both nurtured and
nature.
Yeah, natural. So
They don't just, because two brothers can grow up in the same household, have similar experiences, and one's a serial killer and one isn't.
head injuries have a lot to do with things, and you have a child at a playground, he could fall off a swing set and hit his head, and his parents might not even see it and know that he has a concussion at an early age, and that could change a lot of his makeup down the road.
Yeah, the brain is really important. Really, you got to protect the brain.
Understood. Well, here's a couple of follow-ups on that, because one of the things that I was noticing on the serial killers, and I learned a lot by going through your museum, because I have friends who wanted to read a lot about serial killers. I was not really ever into serial killers that much, but a lot of times there was a sexual aspect to it as well, like perhaps they were unsure about their own particular sexuality. And then the other thing that is unusual to me is it seemed like in the 70s and the 80s, there were a lot of serial killers.
In California.
And now they've been preempted somewhat by the school shooter who does kill a lot of people at the same time.
Yeah, it's more mass killings.
Well, it's also one of those situations where with serial killers, there's a lot more, schooling going on now, and they know how to catch these guys a lot quicker.
Okay.
Sharing of information, law enforcement. Back in the 70s and 80s, the CHP didn't share with the LAPD or sheriff, so you wouldn't even know. Somebody got caught one place, and there wasn't. It's called CODA, and it's a national database of all weird people.
Serial killers that strike today are most likely people that go from state to state, truckers or something like that.
Drifters.
They get caught quicker. You don't have the 32 like John Wayne Gacy, but they are out there still. They just
Yeah, and serial killers, they're really not very smart. I think they're not very smart because they prey on the weak. They prey on drug
Kids.
addicts, prostitution,
Yeah.
that stuff like that. If they were really
They're
worth their
assholes.
salt,
Absolutely.
They're horrible.
I think if they were
Horrible
worth
people.
their salt, they could pick on another part of society that would make a big impact.
What do you think is their primary trip? Just power or?
Yeah. Power.
Oh yeah, yeah, power over others.
And so you started writing to some of these people. You both were writing to them. You went and visited some of them.
Yeah, I never crossed that line.
Yeah, I mean, how was that?
That's creepy. It's
Who did you meet?
Richard Ramirez, Lawrence Bittaker, Reno Mimro. The scary part about, it's not even scary, but the weird part about going to death row is that when you go in, you can't bring anything in with you. And you got to go through 3 doors and you have to sign a waiver before you go in saying, if there's a riot or if something happens to you when in there, we're not coming in to save you.
You're just part of the population.
And when you go to death row,
I wouldn't go.
there is no glass between you. You sit in a chair like this next to them. And there's a room of 100 murderers in the same room as you all. And so anything can happen at any given time. And the guards are behind glass. So they're just watching everything. So what you
Really?
so what you got to do is
creepy.
bring a lot of quarters because that's what they like. They have vending machines in there, and you got to make sure you can bring lots of quarters to feed those vending machines that keep them happy and eating the whole time.
So they will let you go through the doors with a pocket full of quarters.
With quarters, that's it.
Interesting.
Only quarters.
And that's how you keep them talking, was
Quarters.
25 cents at a time.
Yeah.
Richard Ramirez, I never wrote to him. JD
Yeah,
took care of that.
he was creepy.
But I had friends that wrote to him. If you were a female and you corresponded with him, he would request Polaroids of your feet to continue the relationship. And
Okay.
that's one thing I
He used to
wouldn't
ask
do.
me to send him bondage of Asian women's feet. That's what his big thing was, and that's some of the victims he killed were Asian people. And
Yeah.
it's weird, but when you know the history of Richard Ramirez, he had an uncle that was in Vietnam, and when the uncle came back, the uncle was a guy that killed a lot of people supposedly, and he would take Polaroids of torturing and killing these Vietnamese people. So when the uncle came back and he showed Richard at a young age these photos, he was looking at his uncle as a hero. And so when you're shooting up a gram of cocaine at a time and you have these images in your head, maybe that's something that can twist you. That's why I think that it's a nurtured thing and it's also a natural thing. So,
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's brutal. And there's a lot of brutal things in the museum.
Yes,
and
there are.
there's one particular corridor, that I was not aware of this, where there are photos of a woman and her lover.
heads and tails.
Heads and tails.
Heads and
Heads
tails.
and
The
tails.
tails of the
Ladies
head.
and gentlemen, this was the one where I probably got a little bit woozy. And this was here in
Second
LA.
number one
No,
question.
that's in Michigan.
That was in Michigan? Okay. So this woman gets tired of her husband, so she calls up her boyfriend. They get high on crystal meth and
For
then
3
kill
days, exactly.
and then
Yeah,
kill the
kill him.
husband and
Then they had to
dismember
get rid of
him.
him. Yeah.
And if you look at the picture, she looks like a little cheerleader.
Yeah, it's
I mean, it's just
Like,
great. And the
frame
scary
her
part
little
about it is,
face.
guys, she's out now, so
Yeah.
watch who you date.
You only get 6 years for mutilating human remains.
Holy.
You get 16 years for murder, but 6 years for mutilating them.
Well, then on the other side of it, another thing that sticks out in my mind, no pun intended, but
You're killing me.
Yeah, right. Stop it. Yeah, you're killing me. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of these.
Yes, we do.
The Marshall Applewhite.
Oh, my favorite.
I'm choking you guys. This thing is literally killing me.
Right.
Oh my God, that
Heaven's Gate.
we had so much fun with that. We were in San Diego when it happened. It was '97.
Yeah.
And
And it happened in a very exclusive area of San
Yeah,
Diego.
Rancho
And at the
Santa
Yeah, it was a
Fe.
subdivision, right? I mean,
Well, it's Rancho
Santa Fe.
Santa Fe,
It's one
and
of
it's
the
like
wealthiest communities
wealthiest
in the
communities in
country.
California. And what's really interesting about the story is I had a buddy who I used to do artwork with. We collaborate on a lot of stuff, and the person he worked for was Joan Kroc, and Joan Kroc was the wife of Ray Kroc, who started the McDonald's chain, and it was really close to their home, and so that's how we were able to get into the area and go to see the house and the roads and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, they changed the name of the street immediately.
But we had a buddy who was a mortician at the time, and there was so many bodies at that crime, I shouldn't say it's a
39.
crime, 39, that they had to piece them out to different mortuaries because there was just too many. So one mortuary would get 5, another mortuary would get 5, another one would get 6, another one would get 4. Well, some of these bodies ended up at one of my buddies' mortuaries that he worked at the time, and of course, they take off all the clothes when they're getting ready to embalm or prepare someone for burial, and they ask the family members if they want the stuff. Well, there was one family member that said they don't want any of that stuff, and they had the pants, the
Yeah.
shirt, the shoes, the shroud, the patches, everything. And they said, we don't want any of that stuff. So the head of the mortuary said, throw it out, burn it. And so my buddy who was taking care of the body folded it up, put it in the garbage can, and the next morning he came to me and said, hey, I got these for you. And so he gave us the, he gave us the stuff. And following year, they had the auction to try to raise funds to pay for the cost of all the bodies, taken to the mortuaries. And that's how we got the bunk bed and the comet. We got the actual comet.
Hellbach comet.
We got
That's
it.
right.
We got the,
it was under their sink.
Yeah.
It's the can of
All they
Comet.
had to do is look for under the sink to get the
Comet
comet.
cleanser.
Okay, so I didn't see that. I didn't catch
It's on
that
the
part.
shelf there. Those Comet those
yeah.
they're real from. We had the pudding.
Yeah.
Well, some ate Jello and some ate pudding, and we had pudding from the house because they took all the contents of the house: bunk beds, sheets, clothing, Winnebago, and all of it went on a public auction.
And this is a great story because it is Halloween right now.
Oh, God,
at the
let me
time,
tell this
okay,
story.
go ahead.
So about the same year, our friends got married on Halloween. So we had to get dressed up to go to the wedding.
Sure.
And he decides to wear the outfit. It looks so geeky too because it's this weird black shroud
With the Nikes and
with the
Everything,
Nikes,
yeah.
and the
and they were-
patch on the
Patch.
shoulder.
They were really
and
big.
the shroud
I
to
used the
death.
shroud as a scarf.
But then he put the shroud on like this preppy. It was so weird. And everybody's like, "What are you? What are you doing?"
And so we're sitting in the front pews of the church for the
Oh
wedding.
my God. And I kept smelling a fart. I'm like, what? Who keeps farting at this wedding? This is horrible. I didn't say anything. I was like, oh my God. And finally I look over at him like, it's the clothes.
The decomp still
They
on the
still smell like dead people. Oh my God, it was horrible. We just like, here we are with all
Wow.
these people, and they were thinking the same thing. Oh, who's farting? And it was just the clothes.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, we have a buddy.
They still smell in there because they're in that closed room. I
Yeah.
walk by at the end of the night with all the lights
It's funny.
on,
Decomp
hot.
is a strange thing. We
It
go
is.
on to the LA coroner's office, and we get to go on tours there. And sometimes the decomp there is so thick, you can actually see it in the air. You can actually see it. And the one thing it does is it permeates everything. So if you go in for a trip to the coroner's office, you be aware that your clothes are going to smell like decomp, your hair is going to smell like decomp, and when you go home, because we do it late at night, because that's when it's the funnest to do it.
Oh, sure.
So you don't want to take a shower after you come home, so you go to sleep, and the next morning your pillow smells like decomp because it's in your hair.
Yeah.
You
just
guys
a warning
know how to
for
live.
everybody,
Yay.
just in case. Yeah, we do know how to live.
Yeah.
See enough death, you're happy
Smells
to
like
be alive.
victory.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to try every day to live. Well, you don't have to try, you live, but
Life is
you're
too
not
short not to,
doing the best you can.
try everything in life. Try everything in life because it's too short,
We all have bad days, and when I have a bad day, I
walk
just
through the
walk through the
museum.
museum. Yeah, I just walk in there and look
It's
at
not this
somebody.
bad.
No.
What could be is, I'm not dead. Plane didn't fall on my head.
I'll bet you didn't think that the owners of the Museum of Death would be this happy and chipper. Look at them, aren't they adorable? So let's move on because
Kids on the block.
oh my God, I'm choked up even. So the serial killers. That's you got the art, you got the letters, you visited them. You mentioned Richard Ramirez and his foot fetish.
Yeah.
And then how do we continue?
Oh my God, John Wayne Gacy used to call me in the middle of the night, collect. And he wouldn't answer the phone
Nah, I
because
don't
it was
answer
in the
phones,
middle of the
that's shit.
night. But this is 94 or 93, so you answered the phone. It could be emergencies. We didn't have cell phones back then. And it would be him in the middle of the night. And I just start, and it was collect.
Yeah,
So
collect call
he
from
could-
Bernard Penitentiary, John Wayne Gacy.
Will you accept the charges?
No.
And I would just start screaming at him because he could hear me on the other end, but there's the operator in the middle. And I would just start swearing at him, cussing him
Good.
out, and telling him, don't call me at this hour. Finally hang up on him. He called back in the daytime and talked to JD because we did
You
rep
gotta
him.
divorce her. She's not right.
He was going to have the mob kill me. Well, guess who's living to talk about the tale?
Yeah, I wouldn't take too much advice from John Wayne Gacy.
No.
But yes, more. What's
Well,
that?
but the thing that I like about the Death Museum is this intention that you have to educate people and to make people appreciate life. And I've noticed that there's kind of a renaissance right now in that type of thinking. There is the death salon here in LA. I'm still choked up from that thing earlier. Undertaking LA is a new mortuary or funereal system, and I've reached out to those people as well. But so
I mean, everything you think about, they even show movies in cemeteries now. I mean,
that's true.
It's a lot of stuff that is going on.
Back when we started, it wasn't like, I think we really helped.
You guys are cutting edge.
Not only cutting edge, and sometimes you got to get bloody if you're the first one through the door.
Absolutely.
And so we've been lucky enough to actually stay with it, and it's finally come around for us. So I mean, this is how we make our living, and as I said earlier, we have a new museum in New Orleans that we just opened that's doing great down in the French Quarter. I mean, it's a
perfect place for it.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we're getting ready to open another one in Seattle. So I mean, we'd like to see these on every corner of every city in America. Just like anything else, we really feel like it's an educational tool for people to really start finding out who they are, not be afraid of death, because it's inevitable. We're all going to die one day, Stop worrying about it and start living.
Plan ahead, have your body shot up into space.
Well,
Cryogenics.
that's what they did with Scotty, right? I mean, they put his remains.
Celestial.
And,
it's called Celestis.
But let me ask you this. So, in Western culture, you bring up a good point, because a lot of times when our family or friends pass away,
You're shocked.
You're shocked, and nobody has a great deal of experience. And it's not like when you grew up on the range back in the day, and everybody took care of their own family, and they're dead. But now we are so separated from that, like we are when
clinical.
we eat meat.
Yeah, it's totally
we're
clinical.
totally separated from and I'm not bagging on meat eaters. It's just we've separated ourselves from these things that are part of our life and pretty gnarly.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so much.
Like I really believe that as a culture, we're not getting smarter. We're dumbing down, and it's a real shame, because we live in one of the most advanced cultures ever. Instead of making people smarter and having a better life, we just want people to be consumers, and it's terrible. It's a terrible situation that powers that be have put us in, but they don't want to give up what they have, so it's easier to control us this way. So
Certainly.
Well, I think it's unfortunate that kids that come in, we have high school kids. I've had really young kids come in.
My kids wanted to come in, I wouldn't let them.
No, it's good. It's up to a parent.
Yeah, definitely, because you've got to answer the questions.
Yeah.
But they're young, it's mostly young women that come in, and they really want to go to the coroners and see, they want to become morticians or coroners, and they're not allowed to go and see it. You have to be a bad kid. You have to be, caught in a gang or a drunk driving or a drug.
As a form of punishment.
Exactly.
But the good kids, the straight A students, they aren't allowed to see the dead people. That
They're
they really
denied
want to
that
see.
knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's just educational. I mean, I wanted this knowledge. No one would tell me anything.
Well, we're
when I was a
changing
kid,
that,
too.
Yes.
and change can't come quickly sometimes. Change sometimes comes very
a long
slowly,
time.
and we've been around for 20 years now, and people are just recognizing what we're doing, So I mean, it happens, but you just got to stay with it. A lot of people give up on things.
Well, I'm glad you say that, because I do get concerned about this, and in the future I'm going to do a show about this, because political correctness, we're shielding everyone from everything.
Exactly.
It's like, pardon my language, I think everybody needs to buck the fuck up, man. It's
Yeah,
like,
right.
don't say that, and don't go there, and don't watch that kind of television, or don't read this book, or don't take that college class. It's ridiculous. It's life.
Right.
And
They took those two shrunken people off display because it was too politically incorrect. And it was at the this museum in the Bronx. It's still in their archives, but they won't show it. But why is that? I just don't understand it. But that's why we exist. We show everything.
Another thing with our
Here it is,
museum,
and it
with our
exists.
museum, we don't take funding from anybody. Our museum exists because of patrons, and I really believe in art and I believe in museums, but when you have museums that are being, handcuffed by the government for grants and stuff like that to run, you can't really be free and show the exhibits that you want to show that's going to help society out. So thank goodness there's people like us that do have the ability to do what we do, and it's going to change. Things will change.
And if you don't want to come, don't come.
That's right.
Don't pay the money.
That's right.
Don't complain about it, but don't come.
Oh, you can complain about it. I don't have a problem with you
well,
complaining
that too.
about it, but like I tell
I
everybody,
do.
everyone's going to die one day.
Yep.
So, I mean, sooner or later, we're going to get you.
Yeah.
There's no end around. But we have had people on this show in the past who are very hip on the idea of transhumanism, and I'm not completely against transhumanism. I'm not sold on all of it, but one of the ultimate goals of transhumanism is to have extreme life extension and to possibly even transcend death. What do you guys say to that?
That's funny because good luck. I when I had my gallery a week before Timothy Leary died, I was able to go and see him and interview him just for a paper. And it was funny. We're on the patio, and he comes out, and he asks us if we'd like a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. I said, no, no, no. So he comes out with his cup, and he sits it down, and I'm looking at it, and I go, is that what it looks like? And it says Alcor on it. Alcor is, okay, this is the...
We'll say what it is.
Yeah, Alcor is it's a freezing company that freezes heads.
Cryogenics.
That freezes heads, and hopefully something will come down the road that will be able to bring you back after a certain amount of time. Who knows? I really believe, though, once you remove the head from the body, there is no way that you're going to be able to bring someone back with just the head.
That's what I think.
I don't think that. I don't think.
They didn't think.
I don't think
physics.
I don't think physics are there. Maybe down the road when they find that God particle, who knows? What can happen? Maybe they will be able to beam you up, Scotty. But at this day and age, right now, it's not happening. I've had many people close to me die, and I've been there when they are dying, and I've asked them, hey, if there's anything out there, please come and touch me on the shoulder and let me know. And to this day, I'm still waiting for people to touch me on the shoulder.
Well, eventually, you've had a few experiences.
No,
we have some paranormals in our gallery or the museum in San Diego.
I used to do a lot of drugs, so I would think.
No, I've experienced
Me off my rocker.
We can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm the ultimate positive. I'm so positive.
She keeps me grounded.
Yeah. I believe in anything.
Well, well, I guess the other question that I have then to you is, do we have an obligation to die?
Absolutely. There's too many people on this planet right now anyways. I mean, come on. We're overpopulated. There's not enough food sources. They want to go to Mars. It's like, are you kidding me?
Mother Nature will kill us.
Right.
Yeah, this planet's not going to die.
Flick us off like fleas.
In the way it's working out right now, would it be that bad for everything to start over? I don't know.
But once again, most people that you ask if they want to live a long time, they
rich.
don't. No, they don't. Most people don't want to. That I've.
Yeah.
It's not living if someone's wiping your ass.
Yeah, if you're healthy.
If you can get up and walk your dog, that's one thing. But if you're in a bed and you got a feeding tube in you, to me that's not living. I'm sorry.
No.
And that's why I have my life insurance policy is in my drawer.
38.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to me because the transhumanism movement has some interesting aspects to it, and I follow it, but I don't want to live forever, and I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to say that with a great deal of bravado, because I think once you get old and then you're facing death, you might have second thoughts. But I don't know, man. If I'm going to live as a disembodied spirit inside of a silicon medium, that just, I don't dig that.
Also, the way you live forever is by doing something now that people talk about when you're gone. That's how you do it, and that's why,
death.
Yeah, that's why you have these artists that are still out there. We talk about Picasso, we talk about Van Gogh. They did something that was so important in their lives that it continues to live, and that's what I believe living on is.
Preach it, brother. I agree with you. And I was hoping you guys were going to show this in a minute, because what you just said is a perfect segue. And LA's a good death town.
Oh,
don't you think?
Yeah. We have a shirt. It's called Death Town.
Yeah.
And it's done with the Dodgers.
Dodger Town.
I mean, everybody is more fabulous after they're dead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That's how, again,
oh my God, you're so much more famous once you die.
Yeah, Kurt Cobain, Jim Morris, it goes, the list goes on, the 27 Club, I mean, I'm not saying it's good that they died at an early age. That's terrible that they died at an early age. But at the same time, if they were still alive, with the music they make now, would it take down what they did in the past? I mean, you don't know,
Yeah.
So it's like, I see a lot of actors and actresses that live way too long, I think.
Right. And when they do pass, it's like their career gets a boost.
Yeah.
So I had to bring that up because I think about it a lot. But the other thing I saw this week was in South Korea. Now, this is a country that is experiencing an extremely high amount of suicides. And they're having, I think, like 40 suicides a day in the country. And it's a small country, and their economic engine is churning, and so young people are feeling this pressure to succeed. However, a lot of them are becoming undone by it. So now we're having these things they call death schools.
Right.
And we see in this photo, people go to these death schools, especially if they are suicidal. They are doing this to reconsider their thoughts about suicide. And at one point, they are put in those coffins, and I guess the lids are closed, and they're in darkness for 10, 20 minutes. And to contemplate this, they have to write a will, they have to say goodbye to their loved ones. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that, like with the museum, it's the same kind of situation. I had a guy a few years back come in, and I talked to him when he came out, and when he came out, he was visually, taken back, and he took my hand, and he shook my hand, and he said to me, he goes, thank you very much. I go, you don't have to thank me, this is what I do. He goes, no, I was thinking about killing myself. And after I came in here and I saw this, I didn't want to put my family through that. And I think that I wanted to say thank you very much, because I think that, what he went through in that little period of time that he came through the museum, maybe he saw something differently in life that made him open up his eyes, and hopefully, we can touch more people like that if they do may have a problem. And, suicide's weird. We have it's against the law to commit suicide. And they say, like, old people are one of the main people that commit suicide. So what does that tell you in culture? That you become crazy and you commit, suicide when you get older? I mean, it's just strange. There should be a place where you have dignified death, where you can go out on your own terms. I don't want to see somebody jump off a bridge and land on my car. That's ridiculous. And I don't think anybody should see something like that. So why not have places where people can go and check out if they want to check out? Sure, they got to go through a battery of tests to make sure that, but hey, if someone's not happy here, I don't think we should force them to be here.
But I think that's great. I think that's what they're working for.
Yes.
Towards you've got. If they're still willing to do it after they've said goodbye to everyone, after they've experienced it, then they should have the assistance to do it.
This is your body. It's no one else's.
They can Soylent Green them.
Well, the sovereignty of the human body is something I've talked about on this show as well before, and that gets into a whole lot of issues, but I think it's very important. You bring up Kevorkian. Let's talk about Kevorkian.
My hero.
Okay, so here's the only thing about Kevorkian I didn't know. I didn't know Brother Kevorkian was making that crazy art, man. I mean, it's because I thought, okay.
We have one.
I know. The guy was helping people commit suicide who were
ready to check out.
Ready to check out. They had illnesses.
Right, terminals.
But I didn't know about the art. The art kind of put a weird spin on it for me.
Art will set you free, man.
That's probably
true.
Art
will set you free. I tell people all the time.
He's a musician too. He
made
an.
No, he did. He wrote music. He played a sax. He painted. Yeah. He was a real Renaissance man. When you think about it, that's what a Renaissance man is. They try to make life better. And by what he did, he was a leader. He didn't follow, and that's what you got to take your hat off to a guy like that. Even going to jail for what his beliefs are, that's amazing. And you don't have many people like that.
You guys purchased his machine. It was called the
Thanatron. Wait, Thanatron.
The Thanatron.
Yeah.
And how did it work exactly?
It's like an erector set.
Okay.
It's a
it's battery operated. It's like a garage door clicker.
Yeah,
okay.
A metal bar and then 3 syringes hanging off of it with tubes, and you push a button. He attaches this syringe to you.
And then
you push the button, and it would
garage door clicker.
Yeah, it would stop your heart, stop your breathing, put you unconscious, and then kill you.
And that is in the New Orleans Museum.
It's awesome.
And it's not very big either, right?
No,
it's about that big.
Yeah. And he was able to also carry that around in his van, so he could.
He'd carry. They came with a suitcase.
Actually, this is interesting. The guy that just bought the van is a paranormal guy. And so I know he wants to do something with the van.
Do you know who it is?
I do know who it is, but I forget his name right now. But
possibly
I found out. But the thing is, I don't know how he'd be able to really do it the right way without that machine. So it's like he's going to have to contact us if he wants to do something really done well.
We'll let everyone know. But those people all wanted to go.
That's right. And he went to jail because
he killed a guy
on TV
on 60 Minutes. On 60 Minutes, he was the one. He had ALS, which is a big thing now. Lou Gehrig's disease. He could only blink his eyes, but you're fully aware with Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, right? And Dr. Kevorkian set him all up, and he said, Timothy Yount, I think his name was, "Do you want to die? Should I push the button?" And he blinked yes, so Kevorkian pushed the button, so he killed him. And they arrested him the next day after 60 Minutes aired.
And he spent 8 years in prison?
8 years, yeah. Tragic. Really
his
tragic.
lawyer was a guy named Jeffrey Feger, and Jeffrey Feger's brother was the lead singer of the Knack. My Shrunken.
Whoa.
My Shrunken.
Yes.
Yeah. Another musical thing, tie-in.
Yeah.
Wow, that's weird.
That is weird.
Speaking of human bodies and what we're going to do with them,
We're getting
one.
you're getting a human body?
We're working
Allen's.
on it.
No way.
Yes, yes.
Well, you've got the big mannequin of Gigi Allen in the
All
photo.
the clothes he
So,
died in.
For the people who don't know who Gigi Allen is, tell them right quick, and then I got to know about this.
Go ahead, Gab.
Oh, thanks, me, who I hated Gigi Allen.
I'm not a big fan, but you know.
He has a huge fan base.
I know.
Rock and roll's supposed to scare
Gigi
parents.
was he was the most hated rock and roll punk rock. Even the punk rockers hated Gigi. He would
A lot of people
perform
look up
on
to him,
stage.
too.
And
You guys, I just got to
sorry.
interrupt for a second. I'm a music geek,
Oh.
a music savant, like on everything, and I don't know if I've ever actually heard Gigi Allen's music.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's,
I don't know
You
if
should-
I never
It's not
saw
my
him.
You
kind
need
of
to Google him. You need to
Okay.
Google him and check
Yeah.
out some of his
His
live
lyrics
performances.
are crazy. He was notorious for assaulting his audience. He would poop on stage and throw it at the
He
audience.
was arrested 50 times for assaulting his audience.
Right. He was arrested at New York University with Todd Phillips. He directed The Hangover.
The highest grossing student documentary ever was on Gigi Allen. It was done by Todd Phillips.
Todd Phillips. He did the old
didn't even
school.
know
Yeah, and he got arrested with Gigi at New York University because he was filming him. Stupidly, they asked Gigi to come do a spoken word for the students at New York University. He immediately just started beating everyone up, throwing the mic at them and hitting these students.
You
And they're
need to
like,
look him up.
So they arrested Todd Phillips and Gigi at the time.
So you're going to get his body?
Right.
We're trying.
Expand
We're
on
trying. His brother is a good friend of the museums, and we're going to try to disinter the body and bring it to the museum.
Where is the body now?
New
Hampshire.
Hampshire.
Are
And
you going to exhume it? I don't
Yeah.
know if
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
okay.
And the leak out, see, we know some of the coroners and we've gone through the process. We have to become a licensed cemetery and we have to go
Anyone
through,
can do that.
anyone can do how. So we have the manual from OSHA, 600-page manual of how to become a licensed cemetery. And once we do it, we have to keep them in a closed, sealed container, but it'll be all glass. I have it all planned.
It'll be like
I've always
Lenin.
wanted a body.
That's what
It's gonna
I'm
be like
thinking of.
Lenin, you
That's
know?
what
They'll be lining up.
That was my goal when we first started the museum. I wanted a dead, rotting corpse. And we're going to get one.
And hopefully, right next to him, we'll
He always
have
gets
Charles
me
Manson.
Charles,
Manson is always a crowd pleaser.
Yes,
oh
he
my
is.
God, he gets his own room.
Well,
Notice
yeah,
that.
the California death room was of particular interest to me, and the quilt with the
Oh, man.
with the
Swastikas,
swastikas, that was
yeah.
very quaint.
Yeah, right.
Really
Can
nice.
you imagine if you held
That
a black light up to
family.
that, what you would see?
Oh my God.
Yikes!
I wanted to wash that when he came in. Everybody
No,
would grab it. Right? No,
you
wash
can't
it.
do that.
It
You don't
smelled
wash
really
art.
bad. I know.
Well, let me ask you this: in our remaining minutes, because we're talking about human bodies, and maybe you guys will get one of your own, Gigi Allen's.
Yes.
But what are you guys going to do with your bodies when you?
I'm going to be mummified. I want to be sitting on the couch just like this, naked, scaring little kids. I want
And
everyone to
I'll visit
remember
him
me.
every day.
Carl off with an
The
attitude.
only thing is, I
again.
got to make sure that I have a real, like, a titanium rod going through my arm so they can't break my finger off.
Yeah. They do the mummies
Fantastic.
down
It's a
there.
big F you to the world.
I want to be, I'm on the list to be plastinated.
Now explain that.
Well, plastination is a process where they somehow
They inject plastic into your cells.
Yeah, all your cells, and you become plastic. There's a great, it's called Body Whirls, a great exhibit that kind of tours the world.
Gunther von Hagen. Dr.
Gunther von Hagen, yeah, another hero.
Now, is your
But-
skin on you,
Yeah,
or is this
well,
the one
no.
where you see the body
do it anyway.
organs?
You can do it different ways.
Yeah.
They can actually peel the skin off of you. They can keep it on you. There's lots of different. And
What's your preference?
I don't know. I have to think about it.
Because I saw the
It's so
Visible
far away
Man
from
model
me.
in there, which I had as a
Yes.
kid.
Yeah, oh.
Because you could do that. Because you could go half skin,
Right.
half.
I'll plan.
You need
I
to go
plan.
online, go to Facebook at museumofdeath.net. There's a painting we just had commissioned. The woman painted of Kathy and I in front of the Museum of Death as the invisible people.
I saw that
It's
today.
so
Right,
funny. And they
right.
did our dog and our pig as that too. It's
Maybe
so funny.
maybe that way.
Awesome. So, okay, well then, where will they put your mummified and plastinated bodies?
Well,
Hopefully in the same building.
Yeah,
I mean, we
we'll
want
have
to be
it-
together forever.
Yeah.
trust for the museum. Hopefully, it'll go on forever. I mean,
With all our pets around us.
death never dies.
Long live death.
Yeah. I mean, right now you have some pets in the museum.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of them. We have our pet pig Chaos.
All our two-headed turtles and Siamese and
Siamese turtle,
albinos.
our chicken with two butts, Fortunato. Our iguana.
We're blessed. We
Yeah.
have the best life in the world.
I guess so.
Yeah,
You know.
we do.
Wow. So, I mean, business is good. You
Business
guys are
is
talking
awesome.
about expanding. You're moving to Seattle. You're going to take some overseas. I
Yeah.
mean, death is just blowing up all over.
It is. And you know that the animals is one of the weird people. people get really freaked out about the animals.
I wonder why.
They can look at all these horrible car crashes and crime scene photos, but oh, the animals, scary.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. That is a very interesting point, because if you just look at your typical Facebook feed, here we've got all these atrocities happening every day. All you have to do is look at Syria right now and all these people that are having to move up through
Man's
Europe.
humanity, man.
Yeah. Yet, if somebody, I mean, and listen, I love pets, but
of
like,
course.
Kills
you know,
a lion or tiger in
yeah,
Africa.
and everybody
that went
loses their shit. And it's like,
Oh my
you know,
God.
listen, I want dogs and cats to have homes, but we care, it's much easier for us to put our compassion into these animals than into our fellow human beings.
It's the same reason why people
So
walk
true.
by homeless people all day long and don't want to see it. You
Yeah.
know, and people wear blinders. You know, that's how we are made today. You know, we
Yeah.
don't want to see the atrocities around us. We pretend it's not there, and that's one of the problems that we have as a society. That's why
Right.
the Museum of Death is such an important venue. You know, people have got to start opening their eyes, and right now they're walking around blind. Basically, it's a blind leading the naked, pretty much.
It's a great place to take a first date, because you know immediately there's so many topics that are happening that are controversial that you're forced to talk to your first date
Yes.
about execution, assisted suicide, just death.
Some
in gen-
biggie things.
Yeah, who
Big
wants to
things.
spend 3 months, you know, finding
Trying
out
to
about
get-
somebody when you can find out in an hour?
Yeah, it's so we've had people get engaged.
They're open for Valentine's, I believe, you
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
Valentine's was our busiest day this year. Unbelievably, I know all these couples. It was great.
My Bloody Valentine.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And
All
we
right.
sell hearts in jars.
Well, speaking of holidays, our last question: what do the people behind the Museum of Death do for Halloween and
Go home
Day
and
of the
lock
Dead?
our doors.
Really?
We do it every day.
Get off
our yard.
Halloween's
Yeah, we
every
scare the
day.
kid. Get out of our
No,
yard.
we'll be at the museum, of course.
Yeah.
It's a fun day. We have a lot of people come in costume, and it's just a good atmosphere. We
It's
give
got to be
candy
like
away.
it's Halloween at the Museum of Death's got to be like Christmas at department stores. It's just like booming.
Yes, yeah, it's a
Very
lot of
fun.
fun.
Well,
And actually, if you wear your costume and you mention you saw us on this, you get $2 off with your admission on Halloween.
There you go.
well, I highly recommend it. I was there this Friday, thoroughly enjoyed it, and you know, it takes a certain taste perhaps, but I would recommend if you got some time, go by there. It's pretty fun, and it's more interesting than you're probably imagining. So,
Thank
And if you have any questions about death, we'd be happy to talk to you about them.
Absolutely.
JD, Kathy, thank you so much for coming on
Michael.
Antidote.
Pleasure's all been ours.
Hey man, I've had a great time. They gave me a great Museum of Death shirt, which I cannot wait to wear and stir up all the people at my kids' school.
There you go.
And
Well, I gave one of those shirts to my niece when she was in high school 20 years ago. She was kicked out of school.
They don't do that anymore.
No, not anymore. But maybe
freedom
your
of
kids will get
speech,
kicked out.
not.
No.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you
that has
again.
been our 33rd episode and the Halloween episode all wrapped into one. We brought you the death. We laid it out for you from the Museum of Death. Go to the one in Hollywood, go to the one in New Orleans, soon to be in Seattle, and then worldwide. It's just blowing up, you guys.
Have a great life.
Yes.
Truer words never said. Until next week, you, me, every single one of us, we're the Antidote.